hold hands and close your eyes. It's midnight, and you're listening to the Ghost Story Guys. Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storer.
I'm Ian Gibbs.
And this is a show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. Some conversations only make sense after the sun is set, and this is most definitely one. Thanks for tuning in. It's Tuesday, July 25th. This is episode 13, and we're coming to you from that tiny mountain cabin you dream about but can never quite reach. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing pretty darn well, Brennan. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. My mother-in-law's gone back to England, and we're getting used to having the house to ourselves again.
Oh my God, that must be so nice. How long was she here?
A month.
That's a very long time.
That is a long time.
Yeah.
It was a good month. We get along well. She's a cool lady, but
a month with even someone you adore in your space is a really long time.
Yeah, no argument here. We're not going to be taking on roommates anytime soon. What have you been up to?
Usual stuff, work, ghostly walks, which you know about because you brought said mother-in-law on one.
We did, yeah. Actually, it was someone I met on that walk which inspired this episode.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. We'll get to that later, though. You were saying?
Right, work, ghostly walks, and on the weekends we've been doing a lot of camping.
Gross.
What? What's wrong with camping?
Everything. Everything is wrong with camping. Being in the woods at night, sleeping on the ground, freezing your ass off, sunburn, hangovers.
You know camping doesn't have to involve alcohol, right?
Sure, but otherwise then you're just sitting in the woods eating half-cooked food and not getting laid. Or at least that was my experience. The appeal of camping when I lived in Revelstoke, the few times we did it, was more about getting hammered next to a lake than it was anything else.
Oh, alcohol and open water. That's a fantastic combination. Did you text and drive on the way out to the lake too?
I don't have a cell phone, so no.
Yeah, great.
I'm kidding. Texting and driving is for assholes, kids. Don't do it. That's a official Ghost Story Guys public safety advisory.
Oh, God, I hope kids don't listen to this show.
Yeah, you and me both. Anyways, tell me more about you and these scenes from the road that you enjoy recreating on the weekends.
It's not like that. No, you know what? We don't sleep on the ground. We're not animals. We have a My Pod. We sleep in that. And since it's a fire ban, we use a stove like a normal person.
What the hell's a My Pod? It sounds like a teenage girl's first MP3 player.
It is a compact trailer, just an aluminum frame, and it's covered in fiberglass, so it's super light. And it's got like a sound system and a TV and air conditioning.
Air conditioning.
Yeah.
You camp with air conditioning.
What do I look like, a savage?
I shouldn't answer that. So it has a stove, air conditioning,
Yep.
television.
Yep.
You realize what you're describing is the mobile version of a Tokyo hotel room, right? You are camping in a small house.
It's a My Pod.
It's moneyed vagrancy.
Yeah, well, you're just jealous.
Yeah, that's what it is. So you enjoy these placid weekends in your space lozenge?
I do, thank you very much. Went to Parksville last weekend. It was awesome. I found it very relaxing.
Well, hooray for you.
Well, you weren't there, so that helped.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be there. Believe me. We had that conversation. I've myself have found a new way to unwind.
Please, do tell.
Tequila and grapefruit juice.
Oh, God. Why does it always involve alcohol?
Well, because people frown on smoking weed in the house. Mostly. Anyways.
Let's get back to what we're hopefully going to talk about.
Today we're going to be talking about haunted islands, or at least islands people thought were haunted.
This all kind of fell apart on us, didn't it?
Yeah, did it ever? Oh, man. It turns out if you look too closely at most popular haunted islands, there's not much there.
Yeah.
The stories are essentially some random creepy facts held together by a thick layer of bullshit.
Luckily, we found some legitimate hauntings, too, so not all is lost. When we come back, we'll be talking about the infamous Italian island of Poveglia, so stick around.
Welcome back to the Ghost Story Guys. As we said before the break, today we're going to be talking about haunted and not so haunted islands, mostly not so haunted. The first is actually a nameless island between Sardinia and Corsica.
Is it? actually nameless, or did you just not take the time to figure out the name?
The latter.
Uh-huh. Aren't you supposed to be the research guy?
Yes, I am the researcher. And in the course of researching this damned episode, I managed to debunk 3/4 of our intended f***ing subjects.
Oh, no, that's not good.
No. By the time I finished, I was weeping softly under the desk, and there was no time to identify what's essentially a postage stamp in the Mediterranean.
Okay, fine.
Anyways, this story was the one told to me after the ghost walk last week.
Oh, really? Tell me about that.
Yeah. You remember there was a Swiss lady on the tour? She was short gray hair, maybe in her mid-60s.
Yeah, I remember her.
So she told me she was a freshwater marine biologist, and she'd always been skeptical of the supernatural.
Right.
So as we were walking back to the visitor center, because she was going on another walk,
Right, yeah.
she asked me why I had any kind of belief. And so I'd explained to her the handful of things that had happened to me.
Right.
And part of the way there, she said to me, this is reminding me of something. And she said that she was much younger. She was exploring a small island in the Mediterranean between Corsica and Sardinia.
Okay.
Shouldn't say which, and there are a million stupid little islands there. But she said the island itself was about a mile square, and the only structure was a watchtower, like maybe a lighthouse or something.
Or maybe one of those lookouts from the war.
Yeah, it could have been that too.
Yeah.
Whatever the case, she was on the island for whatever reason, and she was the only two people there were her and a maintenance guy.
Right.
And
sounds like a love connection.
yeah, I saw a movie that started like this one. But the maintenance guy, he lived on the island and took care of the tower.
Right.
And at one point, he told her the island was haunted, particularly the top of the tower.
Yeah.
And that whatever it was, didn't like him being up there after, say, 9 p.m. And he would go up there if he had to, but he wasn't a pleasant experience, and he wouldn't stay.
Right.
So she, of course, is a scientist, and she was teasing him about this. And she said she would sleep up there to prove there was nothing to be afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he thought she was nuts. But he said, yeah, no, go ahead. So later in the day, she had to go to the can, and he was off on the other side of the island, I don't know, counting buttons or whatever the hell it is these guys do. And the bathroom door was quite a light frame wooden thing.
Right.
I presumably, when there's only one person on the island, it doesn't matter what kind of noises come out of there because no one cares, right? Anyways, so it was a thin wooden door. So, and again, noise would pass through. So if anyone came up to the door, you would hear them.
Yeah.
And the door latched from the outside. It was the kind of latch you had to pick up and hook, it's sort of a hook and eye kind of setup.
Yep.
After she had done what she had gone there to do, she went to go open the door and it was latched.
Oh, wow.
And so she was pretty freaked out. She was banging on the door, screaming, hollering. And the guy, he was gone doing whatever he was doing for the better part of an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, she was just stuck in there. She was adamant that he wasn't close enough to lock the door while she was in there, and that she would have heard him if he'd tried.
Yeah, of course. It was a light door.
So, she was kind of left to wonder who locked her in. And she's agnostic on the idea of ghosts, but she kind of felt that whatever locked the door didn't want her sleeping up in the tower.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
I'm thinking if something took the time to lock me in a bathroom, I'm probably going to not chase it down.
So if I want to get rid of you, all I got to do is lock you in a bathroom, take the car and go.
Perfect. Yeah, I will not come back.
Lock in the bathroom.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
So kind.
So yeah, that story inspired me to find other haunted islands.
Right.
And I narrowed it down to a few for the show. We're going to talk about Poveglia in the Venetian Lagoon.
Yep.
Daksa off the coast of Dubrovnik, Croatia. And then Sable and Seguin Islands off the coast of Maine. The state of Maine, not Maine Island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's close to here, so that would have been cool. But
yeah, there's Darcy Island, which is near here, and I thought about it.
It's the old leper colony, right?
Yeah, it was, as we'll learn, it's Lazaretto.
You're so fancy with your Italian now.
No. I even got myself this cravat to tug on whenever I say Lazaretto. Anyways, first up is the big gun, Poveglia.
Nice.
Now, I'd never heard of this place, but apparently I'm in the minority.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, well, one internet commenter said to me, if you are into the paranormal and you've never heard of Poveglia, you've got your head in the sand.
Wow.
Yeah, he was very, very subtle about that. Now, you had heard of it, though, obviously, because you're making fun of me now.
Well, totally. I read about it. And also the show Ghost Adventure, which I watched pretty religiously for a few years because it was so terrible, but it's so fun. They did an episode on it a few years ago.
I watched that episode in preparation for this.
It's not great.
No.
And as we learned, it's more or less completely inaccurate.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe what we'll do here is have you tell the people the story of Poveglia as it's known in paranormal circles, and then we'll ruin everyone's good time with facts.
Sounds like a good plan. So Poveglia is a small island in the Venetian Lagoon.
I assume you're referring to the actual city of Venice and not the casino.
Yes. This is the legendary island that has sat in the city of Las Vegas as a casino since the 5th century. Just shut up. I'm educating here. Anyway.
Harsh words.
According to pretty much every English language article about the Poveglia hauntings you can find on the internet, the first people to live on the island arrived in the 5th century fleeing from a barbarian invasion. Barbarian. I was thinking barbarian. I must be thinking about donuts, with the cream. And
I almost bought donuts today. I can't eat them, but I thought, you know what? I'll bring you in some donuts.
That's a good thing you didn't, because I'm too fat already. The first people to live on the island arrived in the 5th century fleeing from the barbarian invasion. When the Black Death began to sweep Europe like a hot new trend in the 15th century, Poveglia became, are you ready? A lazaretto.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hey.
A leper colony.
That's also a Jack White album.
A lazaretto?
Yeah. He said
That's weird.
Yeah, I know. I honestly did not know what the word was until I started researching the episode.
And then you're like, why would he call his album after a leper colony?
He's a hipster pain in the ass.
Oh, there you go. A leper colony where anyone who showed any signs of the plague would be held until their death. According to sources, it's believed almost 160,000 people died on this island, which seems excessive.
That's a lot of people.
According to the haunted histories, in 1922, a hospital was built and Poveglia became an insane asylum. The inmates, madmen sent from all over Italy, were held there in barbaric conditions, tormented by the doctors and the spirits of the dead. Of course, when they tried to tell their doctors about the spirits, it was written off as yet another symptom of insanity. Over the years, the head doctor performed hundreds of unnecessary brain surgeries on helpless patients.
You can't do it on ones that fight back, Jesus.
You got to strap him down. He believed that if he cut apart the brain just right, he could cure insanity. But then he started to hear the spirits too, day in and day out. The ghosts of Poveglia started to drive the poor doctor insane until finally, in one last attempt to rid himself of their constant voices, he threw himself off the top of the hospital. To this day, so they say, I know you love that phrase, Poveglia is said to be haunted by the thousands of the plague dead, as well as those inmates who were tortured to death, and by their torturer himself. Because the hundreds of thousands of plague victims were thrown into pits and burned, it's believed the ash from their bodies make up 50% of that island substrate.
I mean, it's an incredible story.
It is.
It's a shame it's all bullshit.
100% grade A bullshit.
Yeah, pro tip for those of you researching haunted sites, be deeply suspicious when a series of articles from different sites all repeat not only the same facts, but the same phrases.
It's easy to cut and paste.
Yeah, especially if in describing those facts, authors use nebulous language like many people say, or describe events that sound suspiciously like past seasons of American Horror Story.
I like that show.
I liked that season. The Asylum was a good season.
Yeah.
Everything else has been garbage. I couldn't even finish Hotel.
Well, yeah, I get that. But have you watched Roanoke yet?
I haven't yet, no.
Okay, because it is kind of awesome. And I love the way they do the show within the show. And it's way better than Hotel. And I did not care for Freak Show either.
No. I mean, it would struggle to be worse. Freak Show had a great premise, great set design.
Agreed.
Everything else sucked.
Yeah.
And the less said about Hotel, the better, except for the scene with Lady Gaga in the bathtub.
Wait, Lady Gaga, really?
Yeah. And she's not dressed like David Bowie's understudy, yeah. She's Italian, too, so bonus points for that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is Gaga Italian in some way? I did not know that. Why would you know that?
Let's not dwell on this. She's Italian. Let's use that to segue back to Poveglia.
All right.
Which is also Italian.
Yay!
Broadcasting, journalism, buzzwords. Yeah. So yeah, we noticed that all the spooky articles on Poveglia described it as being haunted, but there were no first-hand encounters apart from the television show set there. So I mean, I had looked through some Italian websites for accounts of haunting, and I actually found something else entirely.
Which was?
First off, according to Italian sources, Poveglia was populated in the 6th century, not the 5th, and the people were fleeing Lombard invasion, not barbarians. And I mean, I guess anyone's a barbarian, depending on the point of view.
True.
But no, it was never a lazaretto.
Oh, wow.
Never. At least not in the sense that the English sites describe.
Right.
A lazaretto can either be a leper colony or a quarantine station.
Okay.
For incoming ships.
Yeah.
Poveglia was the latter, but not until the 18th century.
Okay.
And it only ever held 2 ships whose crews were believed to be infected.
Oh, that's lame.
Yeah.
Not exactly 160,000.
No, well, that lazaretto is where as many as 500 people a day died, according to the archaeologist Vincenzo Gobbo. That was Lazaretto Vecchio, and later at Lazaretto Nuovo, and they're both in the Venetian lagoon too.
But not the casino.
Not the casino.
Are there lepers in the casino now?
Well, social lepers. Sure.
If I'm going there, do I need to keep an eye out for lepers?
You can't afford to go to the Venetian.
Whoa!
You're going to be at, what's the one where they have the medieval times restaurant? That seems a little more your speed. Circus.
Yeah, the shitty circus one? Yeah, thanks.
I stay there every time I'm in the city.
Do you?
Yeah, I like it.
Really?
Yeah, it's cheap.
Are the rooms kind of gross though? Or?
No, it was always clean. I mean, they had a bed bug scare there years ago. But
who hasn't?
Every time I've passed through, because I, for some reason, seem to find myself passing through Vegas at random intervals. I've stayed there for, 45, 55 a night.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
and you're right on the strip still.
You're right on the strip. I mean, I don't like the strip. Usually I take the car and you take sort of the back roads and get the hell out of there. But
nice.
And I mean, it's great because there's a very particular kind of patronage attracted to circus. It's not unlike
kind of a middle America trailer park kind of vibe.
They actually have a trailer park on site.
Nice.
They have an RV park.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
I could take my MyPod there.
Getting back to Poveglia.
Sorry.
It was also never an insane asylum.
Oh, wow.
That was San Servolo. That was another Venetian island.
Huh.
There was a hospital on Poveglia, but it was a home for old folks.
Right.
And I mean, there were psychiatric facilities because that's part of the aging process, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it was never an insane asylum. And if there was a mad doctor, which is, again, unlikely, he did not commit suicide. At least not in the manner described in the legend.
So basically, they took all the histories of all the islands and kind of mashed them into one to make a better story?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because it had a watchtower, so it looked cool? Or
who knows why? I maybe it's easiest one to get to, or I don't know. But, and I'm sure there's someone out there furiously Googling in an effort to prove us wrong.
They'll find the same article.
Well, that's it, yeah. This all came from a pretty respected Venice historian named David Busano. You can find his blog online at veneziacriminale.wordpress.com. It's, of course, in Italian, so you're either going to have to bone up on your WAP or use Google Translate like I did.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
There are also English language sources for some of this information, but you have to wade through so many bullshit cookie-cutter articles about the haunted island of Poveglia to find them.
Right.
And there's even kind of this weird mixing of fact and nonsense on sites which are meant to be legitimate.
Right.
Some of the articles about Poveglia have a photograph of skeletons in a mass grave, which people say, oh, yeah, that's Poveglia. But that photo's from a 2007 National Geographic article about an excavation on Lazaretto Vecchio.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it turned up 1,500 bodies of plague victims.
Whoa.
And I mean, according to the people quoted in that article, which I'll try to remember to link in the show notes, they estimate there are thousands more still buried there.
Oh, wow. So did nobody died on Poveglia?
Oh, people died there. The island was fairly heavily populated until it was attacked during the War of Chioggia, which I'm probably mispronouncing, in the 14th century. It may even be haunted, but the popular narrative about Poveglia is totally bogus.
So I guess we're back to the Camorra being the most frightening thing about Italy?
Yeah, that and the racial tension. Actually, I just remembered, I do know another ghost story from an Italian island.
Really?
Yeah. I heard this years ago from a woman who works at my gym, or the gym I used to go to. She was backpacking with a friend, and they were staying at a hostel in one of Italy's many islands. I don't remember which. But in the middle of the night, they were both woken up from sleep by a feeling of incredible presence in the room. They both described feeling as though they were being held down.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah, eventually it passed, but they both experienced it, and they had no rational explanation.
So like shared sleep paralysis or something?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, wow. I wonder what that was.
No, not a clue. She didn't have one either. And I mean, from the way she told it, you could tell it didn't sit well with her.
Yeah, I get that. I'm still kind of bummed out about the Poveglia stuff not being true. I mean, it is such a great story. So many elements.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's still a good story as it stands, and it's a fascinating example of modern myth making, which we'll talk a little bit more later. But yeah, I feel like a bit of a killjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And when we get back from the break, I'm going to rain on the parade of another haunted island, this one off the coast of Croatia.
You're a dream killer. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. We've been talking about haunted islands, or at least islands generally believed to be haunted. And next up on that list is Daksa off the coast of Dubrovnik, Croatia.
I have never heard of this one. Poveglia, I know, but not Daksa.
I hadn't heard of it either. To be honest, I know very little about Croatia. I mean, once I met a very annoying Croatian man, and that's the extent of my involvement with the Croatian people and culture. And we used to go see punk shows at the Croatian Cultural Center in Vancouver.
Oh, yeah, that sums it up. Why was he annoying?
The Croatian guy?
Yeah.
I met him in Casablanca at a hostel in the Medina, and we'd gotten sick in Marrakesh. We just were not all that keen on exploring once we got to Casablanca.
Right.
And my cousin and I, we'd never been to a place as poor as Morocco, so the culture shock was kicking our ass too.
Yeah.
And we'd already been at the end of our rope as far as people asking us for money.
Right.
And then we got robbed twice.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Why would you even go back?
Oh, I did.
No, okay.
No. I've never been back to Morocco. But we ended up in Casablanca after being chased out of Rabat by riots. And this is what happens when I go.
Sounds like an awesome trip.
Yeah, I take great vacation. So we were in what you might call low spirits.
Yes.
So there's this tall, square-jawed Croatian guy just bounced into the room with his backpack and started expounding on how easy it was to explore the countryside and how great the people were. He then stowed his stuff, literally bounded to his feet like a goddamn cartoon character, and then said, "I'm off to meet the town," and strutted out the door like an asshole.
So you resent him because he was handsome and having a good time?
That's exactly why I resented him. He was having a good time. The locals left him alone because he wasn't a fat, soft Westerner. And yeah, he was a lot better looking than me, so f*** him.
It seems a little harsh.
No, I like I said, I felt that was wholly deserved, particularly given the time. Because you see two people who sit there looking miserable as all get out. Yeah. Like they've been beaten with God. Maybe don't tell them how great your day is going.
I guess. Maybe Croatians aren't known for their sensitivity, but honestly, how would we know?
Well, yeah, exactly. I know nothing about Eastern Europe. It's literally, there could be a dragon. So, I mean, the story isn't at all relevant to this, but since this is going to be particularly depressing, I thought we should start off lighthearted.
I like it.
Yeah, so Daksa is one of the Elephite Islands, technically belonging to Croatia, but it's privately owned right now.
Right.
It's about 1.5 nautical miles across the Adriatic Sea from Dubrovnik. There are no ferries there, so if you want to go, you have to find a willing captain who will for a few shekels or whatever Croatia has for money.
It's called kuna.
Sure, yeah. Find a willing captain, slip him a few pumas.
Kuna.
You can explore the island on your own. But even if you do find someone to take you out there, you don't expect him to stay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Darman Richter, he writes the Bohemian blog.
Right.
He went out to Daksa last year. And the captain refused to even tie up at the island, let alone set foot on it.
Oh.
Yeah, he set a return time and then just left Richter to his devices.
But why wouldn't the captain hang out? Like, is it haunted?
I think it's haunted, but not by ghosts. I think it's haunted by history. Daksa was the site of a particularly gruesome incident that I think Croatia's trying to forget.
Oh, how so?
Well, so in 1941, this is a bit of a history lesson. In 1941, Croatia... We're learning today, that's right. It's the reading rainbow. Croatia was still part of Yugoslavia when it was invaded by the Axis.
Right.
So they set up a puppet government aided by what was called the Ustasha, a kind of revolutionary group who was in essentially the business of killing dissidents and everyone else. Estimates vary as to how many Serbs, Jews, Gypsies, and non-fascist Croatians the Ustasha had put to death, but they know it's somewhere between 350 and 500,000.
That's a lot.
It's horrendous. It's an atrocity that is not talked about a lot when people talk about World War II.
Right.
But when the fascists were finally pushed out of Croatia in 1944, the socialist partisans who'd helped remove them decided they were going to even the scales a bit and executed thousands of Ustasha and suspected sympathizers.
Oh.
Yeah.
How does Daksa play into that?
On October 24th, 1944, the socialists went around Dubrovnik and rounded up everyone they either knew or suspected to be Ustasha members or sympathizers.
Right.
53 of them in total, including the mayor and several priests. They put them on a boat to Daksa. Once they were on the island, all 53 were summarily executed without trial.
Wow.
And their bodies were quite literally left where they fell. The families of the dead were threatened with a death sentence should they themselves try to recover the bodies. Yeah. After that, Daksa became radioactive. I mean, figuratively speaking.
Right.
Virtually no one would go there. And it wasn't until 2009 that the bodies of the dead were recovered.
Wow.
Yeah. And of the 53 killed, 35 have never been identified.
That's really awful. And I mean, what the fascists did was horrible too, but one atrocity doesn't excuse another. I mean, you said they rounded up anyone suspected of being a fascist or fascist sympathizer, and they just killed them without a trial. So you're going to get a couple innocent people in there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
It kind of reminds me of Afghanistan after 9/11.
Right.
The U.S. was sending all suspected Taliban to Guantanamo Bay,
Yeah.
and Afghans were using this as a way to settle old debts or grudges. Someone pissed you off, tell the Americans you're pretty sure he was Taliban, and all of a sudden he's rendition far, far away.
Yeah.
Someone got a better farm than you, same deal.
Well, and that also happened in the run-up to the Japanese internment during the Second World War, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, proving people have always been shitty, or at least some of them. Anyways, the story goes that the spirits of the dead roam Daksa at night looking for revenge. But again, I couldn't find a single story of actual haunting. But I did find a great theory, and it kind of ties into something we've touched on already.
Oh, yeah?
Which is Darman Richter, the Bohemian blogger,
Right,
after he went to Daksa, he went out there. And of course, the island's really small. It's about 1,600 feet long by about 650 feet wide.
Right.
And again, the captain wouldn't tie up to the island, and he just left them there, and promising to come back in a few hours.
That seems very trusting. I don't think I'd be okay with some crooked sea captain dumping me on an island and, hey, yeah, I'll come back for you. No worries.
Not with you, but Richter is either braver or stupider than us.
Or a little bit of both.
Probably a little bit of both. So they explored the island for a few hours, and he describes a wholly wild, foreboding place full of stone ruins, overgrown by cypress, orange, and lemon trees. The only signs of the modern world were these red LED lanterns and a bench of the memorial garden.
Oh, it sounds creepy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and mass graves are going to be creepy. That's just a given.
Yeah.
But basically, he says it feels heavy, which is no surprise given the history. But for all its baggage, it's still a beautiful place.
Right.
And he has this theory, which I said, he thinks that Daksa has grown such a fearsome legend around it because of what it says about the past.
Oh, because the socialists were supposed to be the good guys.
Exactly. The Yugoslavian partisans were the heroes who helped save the country from fascist rule. They went around executing people, possibly innocent ones, some of them, without a trial. It doesn't fit the narrative.
No.
So the island becomes, so say, haunted as a way to mask the real story. Basically, mythology is used to control the historical narrative.
Right.
The crime on its own is simply a black mark in the history books. Graft on a supernatural element, and the whole thing takes on a kind of unreality.
Well, yeah, and I mean, we've talked about that off air, how some facets of the paranormal, ghost stories in particular, represent kind of a modern myth. And what were those islands with the haunted pianos, the ones we were talking about at lunch?
Sable and Seguin Islands, which earlier I said were off the coast of Maine, but technically Sable is part of Nova Scotia.
Oh, okay.
But I found them in a book about haunted U.S. islands, so I'm just going to say they're off Maine.
Oh, I'm sure Nova Scotia won't mind.
No.
Close enough.
The two people in Nova Scotia don't listen to this show.
So both Sable and Seguin Islands are very East Coast small islands with lighthouses on them, and both have stories about ghostly pianos being heard. But, of course, there are no pianos for miles around. Seguin has a whole story to explain it. Supposedly, a lighthouse keeper brought a piano to the island to help keep his wife occupied. She only knew one song and refused to stop playing it. According to the story, he used an axe to put an end to both her and the piano, and then himself.
Now, that seems like an achievement, killing yourself with an axe. Like, you get one shot at this.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that. I mean, it's a little over the top. So the story is there, but a quick Google knocks it out of the box pretty quick. The state has a comprehensive list of all the lighthouse keepers on Seguin, and not one of them went Lizzie Borden on a piano or anybody else. At least not while they were keeping the light. Now, in your book, there's a story about a ghostly piano?
There is, yeah. Some people I know were camping in a particularly remote part of the Arrow Lakes when their dogs went crazy.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Right, yeah, barking at the darkness.
Once I read the book.
Yeah, no, which you did, and I read yours, and let's move on. Shortly after that, they heard a few faint notes from a piano, and that was it.
So it kind of makes you wonder, if that sound, the piano sound, was something else entirely. Either some supernatural thing or a totally natural thing. And again, the mythology has grown up around it. I actually had a weird experience like that.
Really?
Yeah. I was fishing off the West Coast, and I hadn't been before, and as we were heading out into the harbor, you kind of go up a river and then into a bay and then into this harbor and then out to sea. And as we were going, we were quite close to the shore, and I kept hearing kind of a singing sound, like it sounded like First Nations singing. And I couldn't figure out what it was. It was a wailing. It was quite haunting. And you're going out very, very early in the morning, so it's a little bit dark still and kind of misty, and there's this whole West Coast supernatural thing going on.
Very atmospheric.
Very atmospheric. And it wasn't until we've gone quite a ways, I moved on the boat and I was sitting by the wire rigging. He has got some long, wires that go down. And that's when I realized it was the water playing over the rigging that was making this this
Oh,
sound.
okay.
Yeah. But it was kind of creepy and freaky and weird.
So you thought it was something supernatural?
Well, yeah, I kind of thought it was something. I wasn't gonna jump to, ooh, there's a ghost in the boat.
Of course, yeah.
But it was, I couldn't figure out what it was, and it was really musical. It wasn't just one sound changing. It
Right.
changed pitches and notes and everything else. So
Okay.
yeah, it was a bit creepy.
So you think the piano sounds on Sable and Seguin might be something like that? Some kind of natural thing people are interpreting as piano?
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? It could be rocks hitting a certain thing, or I don't know. And the other possibility is sound travels so well across water, right? Like,
That's true. Yeah.
so
of course.
well. So it wouldn't surprise me if, I don't know, something else was going on.
Well, I mean, since we've been sucking the mystery out of things today, I will reluctantly agree. Though admittedly, part of me wonders if it's the sound of like shadow men tiptoeing along the invisible strings which connect our world to theirs.
Jesus, that's a thought I could have done without.
Yeah, me too. I kind of wish I could unhave it. We'll leave it there.
Well, before we do, I have a question.
Sure.
Why didn't we do that creepy doll island in Mexico City?
Isla de las Muñecas.
Sure, that's the one.
I knew you'd ask, and so I looked it up.
Oh, good.
The pronunciation specifically.
Wow.
Mm.
I couldn't have told you.
Research.
Yeah. Google, enter. Nice.
So it's still research. A rose by any other name.
So anyway, why didn't we do the creepy doll island?
For a few reasons. The first being that it was the first island that came to my mind when I thought of haunted islands.
Right.
And I figured it would be the first one to occur to everyone else as well.
Okay.
The second is that I don't know that it's haunted really the way people say.
Well, we came to the same conclusion about the islands we have covered.
True, but I didn't already know those stories. I know the story about the doll island, and I think it's more of a case of people looking at something creepy and assuming it automatically has to be haunted rather than being concrete evidence of haunting.
Right.
Now, bear in mind, I haven't read everything on the subject, so I could be wrong, but that's my read. And there's a big difference between something being creepy and something being haunted.
Big difference.
Like Crispin Glover, the guy who played Willard, he's creepy, but he's not haunted. Haunting, yes. I mean, in American Gods, he was genuinely unsettling, but he's not haunted.
Like Kenny Rogers' facelift. He looks like a burn victim.
That's true.
And
yeah.
It's creepy and haunting, but not with ghosts.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And we'll be talking about this difference more in the next episode, I think, when we talk about the Annabelle haunting. We'll also have our fill of creepy dolls.
I won't say I'm looking forward to it, but it should be interesting at least.
Well, let's hope. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this episode. And if you want to know more about the history of Poveglia, check out David Busano's blog, which I will link in the show notes. And if you want more about Daksa, including some excellent photos, check out the Bohemian blog, which I will also link.
Cool.
Is there anything you wanted to plug?
Not really. I mean, I've got ghostly walks, still doing those 2 nights a week till the end of summer. And of course, my book, Victoria's Most Haunted, is selling well, and it's available wherever fine books are sold.
If you're planning to visit Victoria and you want to know which nights Ian is leading the walks, feel free to email at ghoststoryguys@gmail.com. The same goes for any stories you want to share. We would love to hear them.
We're still looking for those dream stories.
Yes, absolutely.
How about you? Do you have anything to plug?
Not really, no. I have those upcoming radio spots, but they're still too far out to bother with.
Right.
I do want to take a minute and mention something, though. On Friday, July 21st, you and I talked about this.
Yeah.
Dave Rooney, the editor of the Revelstoke Current, and a friend of mine passed away suddenly at home. Dave was a cool guy. He was talented, a very, very talented guy. Dave was a talented guy. Before coming to Revelstoke in 2000, he taught journalism in Calgary, and he was very much the hard-ass journalist who speaks his mind stereotype.
Right.
You see in movies and on TV. And he was a big supporter of my book. Back in 2013, he ran the stories, he ran my first set of stories, which kind of got the ball rolling. It attracted to CBC,
Cool.
got me on Points West.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it was huge. And we kept in touch via email. We would get coffee together when we had the chance. So, in fact, we had coffee about 3 weeks before he died. And we talked about serial killers.
Right.
I told him about the smiley face killings. He told me about El Monstro de los Mangones. It's a serial killer who operated in Colombia when he was a kid.
Yikes.
Yeah. He was just that kind of guy. A lot of different knowledge.
Yeah.
But he was a good dude, and without his encouragement, I might not have taken my book to the next level and ended up here. So I wanted to remember him on the show. Here's to you, man.
He sounds like he was a pretty special person.
He was. He was connected to a lot of people in Revelstoke, and his passing has left a pretty big hole in the community. Anyways, let's get going so we can get you to work.
Woo! Yeah, don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes and Stitcher. And of course, share us across your many social media platforms. We've had a big bump in numbers recently, and we would love to keep that going.
That would be great. We're also available now on TuneIn and Google Play, so if your friends refuse to use Apple products, you can always send them there. Thanks, as always, to Pizanta Music for our theme song. You can find him on SoundCloud at Pizanta Music, and he'll be linked in the show notes, too. That one I will remember to do.
Yes.
I'll remember to do all of them, I swear.
Sure.
Yes.
It could happen.
All right, that's going to do it for tonight, folks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Until then, back into the darkness we go. Welcome back to the ghost story. Oh, God.
This is why you shouldn't look at me.
There's plenty of reasons I shouldn't look at you. This is the least of my concerns. Jesus. Yeah, I'm sorry. I had 2 titles to this episode that I couldn't use. One was "It's a me, Poveglia," and the other one was "Are you there, God? It's me, Poveglia."
Oh my God.
But then when everything sucked and it turned out that none of them were haunted,
Yeah,
I thought, well, the island of Dr. Killjoy.
I like that.
Oh, get to the point, Gibbs.
Sorry. I had the same problem when I wrote sermons. They were over in like 8 minutes.
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
It's never happened to me before. Can I keep? I don't know if I should keep any of this.
No, you can't. When we come back, we'll be talking about the infamous Italian island of Poveglia.
No,
So stick around.
there's no R in there. There's no. You said Poveglia.
I
There's no R anywhere near in
I
there.
was thinking provolone. That's Italian cheese. That's
I know.
That's close.
Prosciutto's Italian ham. It's
Hey, there's another one.
Just do the whole line again. Nope. Jesus, what the is that from?
Probably another episode.
No, it mentions Poveglia. I should have numbered these. Oh, no, I see.
Maybe numbering the pages is a snazzy idea.
I did just say that.
Did I tell you Jason thought we were the same age?
I'm sorry? He thought you and I were the same age. I quit the show.
He's like, what? I'm like, well, Brennan's like 34, 35. And he's like, he's younger than me? And I'm like, how old did you think he was? And he goes, well, I thought you guys were the same age. I'm like, no, Brennan is a mere child.
Oh, God.
I know, I'm sorry. I get that all the time. People think I'm retired. So what are you going to do?
That makes me worse. That makes me feel worse. That doesn't improve things. They think you're the same age as me. People think I'm retired.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm sorry.